Simply just thinking about turning through the golf ball could get you into a whole world of trouble. And I'll explain to you today why that's an issue. And then more importantly, I've got some great simple drills that you can do to fix it. I've got this straw kind of bent this way. That represents my kind of posture. I'd be tipped over the ball, maybe not by quite that much, but you can see. So here's me tipped over towards you, hitting in this direction. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see me doing this in kind of real time with my golf posture. If I hold the bottom and I simply try to rotate that straw towards the target, that would be turn. But look where that chest would point. My head would be way forward of my hips and my legs. My chest would be pointing down. That doesn't look like what we see the best players in the world do. How do we get into that better position at the end? Well, yes, there's turn, but we need to actually take that forward bend and we need to get rid of it and almost kind of arch backwards. Now we start to get into an end position that looks a lot more like we see from the best players. So simply having this posture and turning through the golf ball isn't enough. It's going to get you into a lot of trouble. Let's explain why that's the case. I'll show you with a golf club. So if I take my setup to this golf ball, I've got an 8-iron in hand here. Watch what happens to my hips when I simply just try and turn through the golf ball. I'm going to take the kind of golf club and hands away, but watch what happens to my hips. Let's say from the top of the golf swing, I've made this really nice kind of lateral move into my lead side, which we should do. Lots of you will be doing that into the lead side. Now what Andrew was doing is exactly that. I watched his golf swing and from the top he had this beautiful kind of lateral shift into that lead side, got his pressure into his left foot. Now from here, he actually communicated to me that he was just trying to turn through the golf ball. Watch what happens to my hips when I do that. Notice how they went backwards away from the target. Look where my chest is pointing. My head is forward of my hips. My chest is pointing down, my hips backed up, and my back foot kind of started to spin. Now what that's going to do is it's going to compromise a lot of things. It's first of all going to compromise your contact. Your low point, so where the club bottoms out, is going to be really inconsistent. So if you're someone hitting some thins, some fats, and then maybe the odd good shot, it could be because of this. The other thing it does, which is really detrimental, is it drags the club path across to the left. So if I hit a shot here with my 8-iron and try and mimic sort of what Andrew was doing, we're going to see what happens to the club path. Okay, there's me kind of spinning on my back foot, trying to, as best I can, demonstrate that move. Contact wasn't too bad actually, but my club path was minus 10.4. That's not going to get it done. So if you're swinging out to in, you have got issues with strike, your ball flight is curving, and you're trying to turn through the golf ball, it's not enough. So what do we have to do in order to get through the golf ball correctly? Yes, there is some turn, but there's two other elements that you need. So from the top of your backswing, you need some lateral shift. Okay, we've got to move our midsection laterally towards the target. Some 6 to 8 inches is what we see from the best players. So this is our first exercise. Then we need to turn, but as we're turning, we need to take this sort of angle that we've got in our body, and we need to basically stand up. As we saw with that straw, we had to take out that sort of bend forwards. So watch what happens as I make this movement as I turn. We've got our lateral, then as we turn and extend, now we get into this beautiful position. Weight is on the lead side, I'm nice and tall, chest is nice and high. That's how we get through the golf ball. So I've got 2 little drills that I'm going to give you, which are really going to get you to feel this movement, sense what it's actually like, and then we're going to bring it back into the golf swing. So I'm a big fan of using what you've got around you during practice. You're probably going to have your golf bag. I've got my golf bag, and I'm going to position it just to the left-hand side of me. Love it to do this drill. It's brilliant to sense the right movement. And I've just taken one of my irons. This is my 5-iron. I've just got it right at the edge of the bag with a sort of toe pointing out here. I'm going to take an address, and I'm going to put the outside of my lead foot against the edge of my bag. And you can see that the club head is obviously around here somewhere. So what I'm going to be doing in this exercise, hands across shoulders, I'm going to make a backswing. I'm going to take my hips and I'm going to move them laterally towards my golf bag. You can see that gap is closing. Here's the key part of this exercise though. As I go from here through to my finish, I'm going to try and get my belt buckle or the button on my trousers to touch the toe of my 5-iron. Now, if I show you what that kind of paw movement is that Andrew was making, he was going here, and then he was rotating through. I'm clearly never going to close that gap, and that's the position we wanted to try and avoid. What I'd love you to do is go from here, narrow that gap between your hip and the bag, and now you take your belt and you turn it and you push it to be in contact with that 5-iron. The other thing I want you to just be aware of, and I might need you to come a little bit closer here, if you look at my trail foot, when you actually make this movement and you do it incorrectly, and your foot spins, you almost get these kind of patterns. I don't know if you can see that pattern. It's almost like a swirling pattern because the spikes on my shoe have twisted. So if you start to see these kind of swirly patterns underneath your trail foot, that's a really big indicator that as you go through the golf ball, your weight is backing up. And that means that you're turning, but you're not extending. So if you look at that pattern, you see it, that should set the alarm bells ringing. Right, let's move on to our second drill. This is how you can start to hit balls now doing the right thing. So we've now understood the right movement. We've rehearsed it without a golf club. We're now very clear on what we should be doing. How do you actually start to hit balls and make that right movement? Well, you're going to need something like this. It's a bottle of water. It doesn't have to be water. Anything would do. Even a head cover would work for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take my regular setup. Let's say I've got 8-iron here. So normal setup. And then I'm going to take this water bottle and I'm just going to place it right outside my back heel. And that's pretty close. I probably can get the grip of my golf club between the heel and the water bottle, but it's very, very close. So if I make the right movement through the golf ball, which is that sort of lateral and then the rotation with that extension, my heel will lift. I'll be in this position, bottle stays in place. If we do it incorrectly, and this is what so many golfers do, they simply get to the top, and as they go through the ball, they're trying to turn. What's going to happen is the hips are going to back up, the club path's going to go left, and the bottle is going to get knocked over. Two things here, I get the bottle knocked over and I get that kind of swirly pattern that we mentioned before on the ground. So, can you hit balls and keep the bottle in place? Now, if this was me practicing, what I would be doing is using this as feedback. So I don't really want to be thinking about this. So I'm going to place that there. When I finish the shot, that's my feedback. When I hit the ball, I want to be thinking about that belt buckle. I want to be thinking about that exercise with the bag, because when I did that exercise with the bag, that was me building the right ideas, the right concepts, the right feels. So I take that drill, I introduce the golf club, and I think to myself, right, where was that 5-iron? It was maybe over here somewhere. So can I hit a shot, really slow speed with my 8-iron, where I take my belt buckle and connect it to the toe of my 5-iron? And at no point in that motion was I thinking about the bottle. But when I've hit it, I can look back and I can say the bottle stayed in place. My path was actually 1 degree out to in, which is pretty straight. Everything about that shot is good. I had the right visuals, had the right concepts, the right ideas. That helped me. I've got some feedback to tell me whether I did it correctly, and I've got my full swing kit giving me the path numbers, and it struck really well. So if you are simply turning through the golf ball, you're going to get in all sorts of trouble. You're going to start to fat it, thin it, your attack angle is going to be all over the place, your path's going to be all over the place, you're going to start backing up, it's going to give you a lot of issues, you're not going to strike it like the best players in the world do. Now obviously that wasn't at full speed, so all I would do then is I would just build that back up to full speed. I need to move that a fraction, and we now say, right, can I now put that movement into a full speed swing? Belt buckle connects to 5-iron. Did the bottle stay in place? Just about. I think I clipped it, but it just about stayed in place. Strike was good. Path was 2 degrees into out that time. Everything in that golf swing was perfect. So don't simply turn through the golf ball. That's not enough. You need to be shifting, turning, and extending.